Hello everyone. Today we're going to talk about a drama war film called The Patience Stone from 2012. Enjoy your viewing. The film shows us Afghanistan in the midst of a severe war. A 30-year-old poor woman is taking care of a paralyzed man. The man became paralyzed because he was shot in the neck. Shots and explosions are heard outside the window, but the woman does not leave her husband's side. She washes her husband's hands and face, and then prays to Allah to give them strength and help them cope with the disease. Trying to bring the man out of his stupor, the woman asks him to hold his breath, but she realizes that he does not respond to her words. The doctor said that everything would improve in a few weeks, but 16 days have passed, and the man is still immobile. Only 2 daughters manage to distract their mother from their sick father. The children are very hungry and ask to go outside for food. As soon as they go outside, militants drive by and engage in a firefight with the enemy. The locals are used to living in a war zone. They call it life in hell. That is why they do not react to what is happening around them. A woman goes to a pharmacy and tries to buy some medicine, but she has no money, and the seller refuses to give her the goods on credit. She is unable to find money, so in despair she returns home and gives her husband an intravenous drip of sweet water. She does this so that her husband does not feel hungry, and it works. Despite her husband's vegetative state, the woman communicates with him and asks for permission to go to the store or visit her aunts. There is no answer, so she puts on a hijab and goes to the only relative who has not left the city because of the fighting. Soon she arrives at her aunt's house, but an unknown man opens the door and chases her away. The woman understands everything. Now she has no one, so the disappointed wife returns home and tells her husband about it. The man's family had left the country a few days before without telling them. The woman is offended by this because she knows the circumstances under which her husband was injured. 16 days ago, he confronted a man who had insulted his mother. The man had been fighting his enemies for years, but was shot in the back by his compatriot. The daughters again distract their mother from talking to her husband. They are very afraid of the dark. There is no electricity in the house, so the woman lights a kerosene lamp. Reassuring her daughters, she asks them not to disturb their father, because the girls do not understand what happened to him. The next morning, a doctor comes to their house to examine the wounded man. The hostess won't let him in because she is unclean and having a bad day. Realizing this, the doctor asks them to pray for the man and promises to return in a few days. Meanwhile, the girls see that the door to the bedroom is open. They decide to go in, not realizing that their father is in serious condition. The daughters remove the tube from the man's mouth that keeps him alive. The girls start jumping on him, trying to play. When the woman returns to the house, she sees the horror of what is happening and throws her daughters out. To make sure they didn't hurt her husband, she examines his body and realizes that the wound is still not healing, and the bullet is still in his neck. Soon after, a loudspeaker announces that people need to gather in a certain place to get weapons to defend the city. As soon as the first explosion occurs, the woman and her children run to the basement where her neighbors are hiding. Hiding in the shelter, people listen to the radio to find out when it will be safe in the city. As soon as the explosions subside, the women rush to their husbands to make sure they are okay. Outside the window, they see armed soldiers and tanks randomly shelling the city to do maximum damage. The woman is frightened by the constant gunfire she hears. She returns to the basement to calm her frightened children. A few hours later, she goes upstairs again, glues the glass broken by the shockwave, and cleans up the aftermath of the shelling. When she returns to the basement, she hugs her daughters to keep them from crying. At this time, Afghan soldiers enter the house and find the man. They take off his watch and wedding ring. The soldiers search the house. At one point, they decide to kill the man, but leave him unharmed because there is a book in his room called the Quran. When she returns to the house, she realizes that they have been robbed. But it's not so scary, because her neighbors were gutted and left hanging in the middle of the yard. The children are in danger, so the woman packs her things and goes with her daughters to their aunts. The unidentified man tries to chase her away again, but gives her the address of her aunt, who has moved to a hotel for easily accessible women. After finding the aunt, the woman leaves her daughters in her care. She learns the horrific story of her relative. The fact is that she was married but barren. Her husband sent her back to her parents, and her father-in-law decided to take advantage of the situation and forcefully kept the woman until she sent him to the next world. The mother of 2 daughters leaves the girls and takes some money to buy her husband medicine. When she returns home, she talks to her husband, who stands motionless, recalling recent events. His brothers knew about the war but left the family, even though their house was in the line of fire. A little later, the woman admits that she is dissatisfied with her marriage, because in the 10 years they have been married, she has hardly seen her husband. If he had died, she would have married one of his brothers and then run away. But this did not happen. She is also offended by the fact that 10 years ago she married not her husband, but his photo. Her mother-in-law controlled her every move, and slept next to her so that the young girl would not betray her husband in the war. Immersed in her memories, she talks about what terrible people her parents were. Her father was obsessed with his work and did not pay attention to his daughter. He often raised his hand against her, her sisters, and her mother. One day he spent all the money on special birds, but the birds got scared and ran away. Having no money, the father gave his 12-year-old daughter in marriage to someone he owed. Not wanting to become the next victim of human gambling, she got rid of the birds by feeding them to her cat. At some point, the woman realizes that she is telling her husband too much. She runs to her aunt to tell her about it. The aunt reassures her, telling her that her paralyzed husband has become a magic stone of patience for her. He can withstand anything. Even if the stone breaks into small pieces, it will make a prophet of Allah out of its owner. A woman decides that her husband is a stone of patience, and soon after returning home, she hears her neighbors burying relatives. She does not let the doctor come to her doorstep because she has nothing to pay him. The town is full of soldiers, so she buries her husband in a niche in the wall, covering him with pillows and a curtain. After a while, the commander of an Afghan unit and a soldier who stutters appear in her house. The woman realizes that she may be taken away by force and abused. She tells them that she works as an easily accessible woman. For them, this is considered bad and disgusting, so he spits in her face and insults her. He doesn't realize that she has a knife behind her back, ready to use at any moment. The next morning, the stuttering soldier returns to the house and offers the woman money to make love to him and take the boy's virginity. The woman refuses him, but the boy does not care. He throws the money on the floor and takes advantage of the woman. After a moment of shame, she takes a bath and decides to spend the money wisely. The next morning, she buys water and food, as well as medicine for her husband. Soon, the young soldier visits the woman again and pays her generously to spend a few minutes with her. Without hiding anything, the woman tells her husband about it, because he will not do anything to her. The date lasts only a few minutes, but it is still better than what happened to her husband. At some point, the woman realizes that she is saying terrible things and picks up a Quran to repent of her sins. The next morning, she notices that the damaged fence has been repaired. It turns out that a young soldier did it to spend a few more minutes with her. The guy is being abused by his commander, and his body is covered with cigarette burns. Realizing all this, the woman calms the stuttering soldier. The woman accidentally meets her aunt again. She learns that prophets are not born, and they too have their flaws. Returning home, she finds fruit and a gold chain given to her by a soldier in love. She realizes that she feels happy only with him, but the woman feels guilty towards her husband. Trying to be fair to her immobile husband, the wife tries to hug him, but soon realizes that she did wrong and repents again. A little later, she decides to tell the biggest and most terrible secret she has kept all these years. When she was pregnant, she tried to get rid of the baby and almost strangled the girl with her feet. The reason for this was her husband's infertility, which she did not dare to tell him about. The woman did not want to lose her marriage and her honor, so she met the owner of a house for free women. Later, she introduced him to her mother-in-law and said that he was a healer, so that her mother-in-law could thank him for his services. In fact, the woman made love to men in a dark room, and she did not know their names or appearance. She didn't know who the fathers of their daughters were, and she wasn't sure if they were the same man. Hearing the truth, which frightens and drives her crazy, the man comes out of his vegetative state and attacks the woman, trying to strangle her. Grabbing a knife, the woman takes her husband's life and believes that she has destroyed the stone of patience, becoming a prophetess. At that very moment, a young soldier decides to visit his beloved and becomes an accidental witness to the crime, and this is where the movie ends. If you have watched the video so far, you should know that I am happy to have viewers like you. Thank you for watching to the end. Subscribe to the channel and follow the news. Klontsak Recapped was with you. See you soon.